And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Business Octopus live stream where we talk about all things sales, marketing, and technology. My name is Aidan Collis, CRM and marketing automation specialist at Relevate and all around good guy. Today, I'm going to be talking through some common questions we get around marketing and technology and sales. So don't forget that if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll answer them as and when we can. You can also see this if you're watching Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. So please give us a like, a comment, etc. Helps us to get some reach. We also have a marketing Discord channel that you can join. It's a community where you can chat with others. It's good if you're looking for a career or maybe you want to fix some things in your own business. And in some of the channels, I'm able to post a link. So keep an eye out. If you are watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, you should be able to grab that link now in the comments. Now, so today we're going to be talking about starting where you're at. And by that, I mean that, we get people at all sorts of stages come to us and ask us, how do I grow my business? How do I get more sales leads? How do I handle what's going on in my business? Maybe there's a pain point that they need to solve. But everyone's moving at different stages. And sometimes we have, sole traders right through to large companies. And you need a different thing for every stage. So rather than give a set solution or rather than give a blanket cover or response, what I thought I'd do is just go through some of the stages and just cover some of the high notes of what people generally need when they are trying to level up. So there's some things that you would do as a sole trader that you wouldn't do at a large level and vice versa. Obviously, the needs are different. You don't have a team if you're a sole trader, or you've got a very large team. So maybe you need to, if you're a large company, so maybe you would need to, have some delegation things in place. But essentially, what we're looking at doing is highlighting the things that you need at each of those stages. So if we take a big picture view, some of the biggest things that are a roadblock or that prevent that next level activity, particularly if you're a sole trader, you're doing everything yourself. You're finding the customers, you're sweeping the floor at the end of the day, you are doing the actual work. And then you've got this problem of kill a bear, eat a bear. So when you've got a client, you then have to go and service them. And then while you're doing that, you don't have the time to go and do the marketing. So getting out of that cycle is actually really important to be able to scale up. Now, a lot of times, people will either look at hiring a virtual assistant or something, but you've got to have the money to do that. Or maybe you're so busy doing what you're doing, you don't have time to go and hire an assistant. So one of the most important things you could do from that perspective is create the conditions to allow someone to help you. So in order to get to the first hire, you need to have something for them to do. Like obviously, if you're at 100% capacity, then you need to go and look for someone. That takes time. Plus, when you do hire them, while you're spending time hiring them, the sales side is going down. You're not making the same, dollars per hour, or it depends on what you do. But there's a deficit on the income side. So then when you're doing, when you're bringing that person on, let's say they've started, you're training them, you need to be off the tools so you can train them. So you're spending, time trying that you could be spending doing the task, showing them how to do the task. And if you don't do that effectively in the start, it's going to take them longer to be effective, to be able to take some tasks off you. It's going to take them longer to feel as though they're effective. So there's a morale side to that as well. So if you have one of the biggest tips, if you have to hire someone, or if you've got enough work that you need to take a step back and get someone else involved, one of the simplest things that you can do is just record using like a Loom or a Vidyard, or you can do it in PowerPoint. Just record your screen on things that you do, administratively, or maybe even get someone to film you how to do a particular task. Because what that does is it asynchronizes the learning. So you can put that into either just give them a folder of videos to look at, or you can put it into a structure or a document or have links or whatever. But taking the time to do that early on, as early as you can. Maybe you change your processes along the way. That's fine. Go and update the document. Be disciplined about it, because the moment that you need to level up, you need someone to come in, and you don't have time to train them. So if you have a pack you can give them and they watch 8 hours of content and then come in, and then it can at least take something off you, that gives you more time to then show them the next thing and the next thing, and it just gets better from there. So make sure you spend that time up front developing your processes and procedures, because it will save you immense amount of trouble and dramatically improve your ability to scale up from one. Been there, done that. So trust me, that's the best way to do it. The next one is if you've got a few staff, let's just say you've been running for a while, maybe your turnover, a couple of $100,000, $1 million, whatever, depends on what your business is again. But you generally have another inflection point, another problem that occurs when you get to a certain level. So obviously having staff, you've got, say, 5 or 6 people around you. It's easy to know what each person's doing. You've got time to meet with them all. You've got time to show them things, give them direction, go back and check their work, and to fulfill that management role. But the problem is, at a certain point, and again, depends on the complexity of the work, how much time you can actually commit with them, what their availability is. But around about that sort of 6 to 10 staff mark, you really start to have some bottlenecks of information, and that becomes you as the business owner. You are the bottleneck. So you need to create some systems that will further extend you out of the process and get things happening without your involvement. So you should be able to have complete processes end to end that don't require your input whatsoever. And the way you can do that is through, task management systems, having those procedure guides, videos, how-tos, whatever. Maybe build a process flow so they have to go through a set of screens and fill out information to get the end result done, or they have to check the boxes off and in order to submit the form. And then that becomes a level of audit control to say that they've certified that they've done that task. So if you go back, they've ticked all the boxes and done the task, and the task isn't done, now that's a performance issue. It's not really a I didn't know what to do issue. So having a HR system, something that helps you to manage financials, helps you to manage, when someone's next, whatever review date is, etc. Having some documents as well is really, really important, because they're the things that template everything that you do internally. Virtually everything internally should be a template where possible, because presumably you're going to have to do it again and again and again. The next one is, we mentioned task management, is quality and performance management. So again, once you're giving someone else the task, you need to have a metric in place. Now, granted, an employee is probably never going to do the same job, same quality job as you. So you need to create the work and the goal, like the mark of success, something that's attainable for someone else. You also then need to have a mechanism to check that, whether it's, like I was saying before, fill out a form, click go, you get an email. Now I know that that's been done. I can go and review it. Or maybe everything has to come by you for a final sign off or something like that. But again, that causes bottlenecks. So maybe there's a checklist of, does it have, top, middle, bottom? Is there a cover over it? Whatever it is that's relevant. But having those mechanisms in place allows you to create delegatable quality control, and you are still the conductor. So, and then the next phase is in a emerging medium business. So beyond that 10 staff, maybe you're now at like the 20 to 50. You're starting to get a little bigger. It's starting to get a little bit more complicated in how you do your everyday tasks. So now you've got management layers. You've got people that you've maybe never met in your organization, or if you have, it's been for like a 15-minute chat because there's so many people that you've got to talk to. There's things like you're not involved in everyone's life. You're not reviewing their work all day, every day. Somebody else is doing that. So you need to review the reviewer and make sure that the end result goal is being met. And if that ever fails, and if you can get early as possible indication of failure, You don't want to find out that something's been done wrong a year later. That's going to be very, very costly to undo. So try to find indicators that show you early on whether things are not being done. For example, maybe there's a report on the weekly reports. So say, for example, the low-level staff mark something off as done. Then the management review all the things done for that week and then also give their report. That allows you at least weeks historical data, so you can find out were things done correctly. And then, you periodically need to audit and check and make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do. The other things you have to do at this level is delegate those higher level tasks. This is when you might have more regulatory controls, such as payroll tax, or you need to have key roles in your business like a CFO, a CTO, a CMO, COO. A lot of acronyms, but basically someone else that just takes care of marketing, but they're the boss of all of the marketing. Someone who takes care of all the technology and they're the boss of it. And then someone who takes care of all the financials and they're the boss of it. Someone that can just focus on that, but they need to work in collaboration with all the other C roles or C-suite roles so that you can present a unified front. There's no sense with the CFO saying, yep, I can get rid of 30% of our costs by firing all the staff. Well, that's great, but now you're not going to be able to deliver. So the COO is going to have a conniption about that. And then maybe the CFO, and I'm picking on the CFO here, could say, we could save a lot of money if we stop marketing. But the CMO is going to say, no, we need to continue marketing because otherwise we're not going to have a business in 6 months' time. So these sorts of things need to work together. And again, you're probably the head of the board table, looking at these people and talking to them about goals, objectives, values, making sure everything aligns. Okay, so that's if you're a emerging medium-sized business. And once you're over the medium-sized hurdle, then you're on to much bigger things like global expansion, listing on the market, and you need to bring more core skills in-house and professional leadership. So that's probably when you need bigger board of directors and people with much bigger certifications and qualifications in your business. All right. So that's thinking about where you're at in business. The next thing I'd like to cover is how to continually make sure you don't have an oh crap moment. So the oh crap moment is like something's breaking, something is falling apart, there is a problem, but half the time you probably could have foreseen it happening, or you probably could have prepared for it in some way. We're talking about workforce planning. We're talking about project planning, having new ideas in the pipeline, and exactly that. Everything is a pipeline. Everything in your business has a life cycle. Staff, they're not going to stay there forever. There might be between 1 year and 10 years or more. It just depends on your industry. But you need to have a pipeline for everything, whether it's ideas, staff, projects, sales, HR processes that occur. Everything needs to get done, and being aware that there is a pipeline factor to it allows you to prioritize, allows you to give or delay things at different times, allows you to track everything throughout its life cycle in that pipeline. As long as you measure it, you can track it through to completion, update it, give it details, etc. So if you think of everything in your business as a pipeline, you pretty much can't go wrong. So, people enter and exit at different speeds, including suppliers. So you might have a de-risk by having multiple suppliers. You might say that this supplier is going to run out of product X in X amount of time, or you might wind them up. At least you then have other options. Or what happens if you scale beyond the capacity of that supplier? Maybe there's something else that you need to look at. You're constantly balancing supply and demand skills, people at all levels. You need to balance the demand volume and the amount of leave and pay details, update requests, all that sort of stuff from that HR pipeline perspective. There's a lot of internal administrative work that you probably could processize and reduce the cost of. You need to balance the number of operational staff to the amount of work requested. So looking at your project pipeline, you can then forecast your HR pipeline to determine how many staff you need, maybe when you need to hire contractors. Maybe you might develop contractor relationships early so that when you actually need them, it's just within an arm's reach, instead of a full recruitment cycle or looking at a workforce management group or something like that. And your forecasts are not always 100% accurate, so you need to have some variability. So you're not necessarily going to hire some fixed cost wage staff to do some project variable work that may disappear in a period of time. You probably want to have a composite of full-time staff and contractors, and then the contractors can, or subcontractors can, grow and shrink with the work availability. So there's a lot of factors that you need to have a pipeline for. And some other ideas when we're talking about before briefly about new product development. If you're going to have if you're going to have a new marketing idea, a new project that you're going to deliver, a new product that you're going to invent, a patent, or any of those things, you need to have a development pipeline. We even have an internal process development pipeline. So we've got a lot of ideas on what we can improve. Some of them are great ideas, but they're just not necessary. Like, we don't have the volume of problems to want to solve it. We don't want to spend 20 hours developing a couple of lines of code or an application to handle X problem if there's just not enough need to solve that problem. If we only have the problem once a month or twice a year or once a week, and if it's a 5-minute problem, it's not really worth our time to go and spend that money or internal development time improving that thing. If, however, that changed and then we were dealing with 1,000 a day, then we could probably develop an app or a line of code or an automation or something where possible. Even if we spend, particularly if it happened 1,000 times a day and it required an hour each time, there's 1,000 hours a day. So it's certainly worth spending maybe even a few thousand hours developing a solution to cut that down or nullify it altogether. Imagine saving 1,000 hours a day, exactly what that cost would be in terms of headcount or where you could repurpose that time. So very, very important. The next one is having a pipeline of new opportunities. Sometimes it's not always about finding new customers, maybe not necessarily building things, but it could be looking out for something new. Maybe it's a new partnership, new strategic partnership. Maybe it's buying a competitor or another business that could be complementary to yours, acquisitions, etc. There's all sorts of pipelines. The list goes on. You could just keep going. But if you track it, you write it down, you progress it forward, you review it on a regular basis, you're not going to forget it. You're not going to miss the opportunity. Okay. So understanding that all parts of your business could benefit from having some form of pipeline to it. Each task, each idea, each project or employee promotion, career opportunity, whatever, has a life cycle to it. So you probably want to have a status measure to track exactly what phase that's in. Is it just about to happen? Does it need a sign off by someone? Is it completed? Anything, basically. So now that you understand what this pipeline is, you can fill your pipeline with potentials in any category and move them forward. Having them ready, and so you miss that oh dear moment, that oh crap moment when you just don't have staff ready to go, or excuse me, or you don't have a new product to release, or you don't have a new marketing campaign idea to release. That's when you go, oh dear, I've run out of time, or I've run out of resources, or I just don't know what to do. You sit there and you stall, and that stalling effect can slow down your growth, and you might miss key opportunities or really important things. So that kind of flows into having a course of action development plan. So when we get to this, then we're going to do that. For example, when we have 50 staff and we have 200K cash in the bank, and we've got X amount of projects in the pipeline, then we're going to invest in this bit of tech. Or perhaps when we have this amount of cash in the bank, this amount of revenue, and this amount of forecasted projects, we're going to hire person X, but we've already kind of fielded the goals, developed relationships with people that have those skill sets, and we think we got an eye on about 4 or 5 that we think might be good. We send out an offer. Again, that can reduce your hiring costs. If you were to hire a recruiter, then that's going to cost you, 20%, 15 to 20% of their salary. So there's some benefits to being proactive. Okay, so just quickly, I'm going to briefly go over how you can leverage systems to do that, to do all of those things that I mentioned just previously. So first one is self-service. Reducing your pipeline, I guess, clogging or the stuff that's in there that doesn't need to be, is by getting stuff like all your problem solutions internally and externally, getting people to self-solve them for themselves, just getting information. So the next one is knowledge base, which kind of goes in hand with self-service, is that, self-service might be a portal where someone can update their own information or progress things for you. Whereas a knowledge base is getting, what do I do? How do I do? That's the information that they would download or read, or the video that they would watch. The next one is templates. We talked about for every internal process, if you're going to do it more than, once is whatever, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a trend, maybe you should create a process or a template, or at least the starting outline of. The next one is automation. And if you've got all of those above, automation becomes a lot easier and a lot more valuable. Then we want to schedule stuff, start to plan it out, prioritize, and give those the weighting of value to you, but also maybe there's something that's important that needs to happen, but it's going to clog up with 100 other things, move it forward. So that's just demand management and capacity planning. Put it in the calendar, makes it more efficient. And the other one is plan it in a task list. If it's not something that needs to happen at a set time, put it in a task list and then just dedicate time every week or every day to go through and kill your task list. That way, things will progress forward. You will be able to reduce the amount of clutter, and you'll be able to manage your everything as a pipeline kind of methodology to go through all the way to completion. Okay. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for listening. If you've got any questions or if you want to find out more about us and what we do, you can go to relevate.com.au. If you have a question, just go to the contact page and submit it on the form there. Or you can ask on any of the socials. We'll pick it up, and if we can't answer it live, then we will answer it in the either in the community or back on here next week. So we do this every Friday at about 1:30 p.m. If you've been watching so far, thank you. If you're watching asynchronously, feel free to join us. Otherwise, the recording is more than fine. We have tons of tips, tricks, and podcasts on our YouTube channel, including video demos and guides. So that's quite useful. And as always, thank you for listening to the podcast. And if you have any questions, don't forget, go to relevate.com.au. And until next time, take care.